How's it? It's Kei here, and you are watching Mix and Mingle. So for those who are new here, I'm Kei, a senior year student in college in Japan, studying English education right now. But I spent 1 year off living in Vancouver and studying business management there on a COOP program. So as you guys noticed from the title, so today's video is all about career perspective from a native speaker. I'm super excited to talk about that because the reason why I feel like investigating further about this topic is because I always found myself like thinking about, there's something extremely different ideas of how, Western people and Japanese people think about their careers and, job hopping or side hustles or maybe the whole concept of job hunting is totally different. So for example, let me explain what I found out when I was living in Vancouver. I think when it comes to job hunting, there is a significant difference between Canada and Japan. I think Japanese job hunting is highly structured. It typically starts during the final year of university, with companies like organizing recruitment drives in advance. And also there are strict timelines and set up procedures that students must follow, including company information sessions or many times of exams and many rounds of interviews. So basically there's a lot of process that students must follow. Whereas in Vancouver, I'm talking about Canada in general, I think the process itself, job hunting, is much more personal. I think it's much more flexible and less controlled. The reason why I say this is because job seekers and students are looking for jobs throughout the year. It doesn't matter whether you're freshman or sophomore. Depending on when the opportunities may come up. So like I said, the process itself is generally less controlled, and all it takes is network interaction. It's hugely important. And you know what? Job hopping is extremely common in Canada. So there is a greater acceptance of career mobility, I think. Changing jobs frequently to seek better opportunities, or looking for more higher salaries or better opportunities is super common and often encouraged. However, in Japan, I think there is strong cultural expectations of loyalty to one's first employer. I think the concept of lifetime employment is still influential. Also, it's gradually changing, I know that, but it's still really influential. とこんな感じで、どちらがいい悪いっていう風に言ってるわけではなくて、上げ出したらすごいキリがないぐらい、仕事に対する、考え方の違いとか、カルチャーの違いっていうところが、たった1年住んだだけでもうすごくわかるようになったんですよね。これがもし5年とか10年とかっていう単位で向こうに住んでたら、もう多分ギャップがもうとんでもないことになってるんだろうなっていう風に、本当に思いました。ただ自分自身カナダと日本にしか住んだことがなくて、他の英語圏のことって全く知らないんですよ。かつ、ヨーロッパの方にも全然知見がないので、今回はその両方とも住んだことがあって、両方ともで仕事を経験したっていう方にインタビューを取ってきました。今回ビデオに出演してくださる女性はブレンダさんという方で、イギリスでもともと生まれ育っていて、現在はスウェーデンの方で自営業をされている方です。また南アフリカでも仕事をされた経験があるっていうことで、なんとトリリンガルなんですよね。で、現在も仕事をバリバリされているっていう、もうそんなバリキャリな方なんですけど、そんな方にそれぞれの国での仕事の見つけ方だったりとか、また仕事の文化の違いだったりとか、またその国ではどういった人材が結構必要とされている傾向にあるのかとか、またキャリア観についてとか、本当にたくさんの質問を投げかけてきたので、ぜひ最後まで楽しんでいってもらえたらなっていうふうに思います。それでは行ってみましょう。どうぞ。So,
how did I find my first job?
Yeah, how did you find your first job?
In the UK, it was through advertisements, so adverts, and then you apply, go through the interviews. But in South Africa, it was through connections. Yeah, it was through connections. I knew a manager at one of the banks, and I went for an interview and I got the job, but it was just a formality, really.
So for the second jobs, you happen to be really lucky for getting a job, which is thanks to like networking, right? Networking you were already connected to.
Yes, and
So-
in Sweden,
Mhm.
it was through because I volunteered for a lot of charities. For example, a women's shelter, women's group that dealt with maybe women that were abused and so forth. So I volunteered there, and I made a lot of connections that way. And I also volunteered at my daughter's school. She went to the international school, so I got connections that way, and that's how I managed to get jobs in Sweden.
Oh, fabulous. You're so energetic.
Yeah. So
I mean, like, so when it comes to getting a first job, like, was it happening like right after when you graduate from your university, or I don't know, so much
I had to apply, make a lot of applications before anything positive came up, and I almost got to a point where I was pretty desperate because you don't have the experience. You just want to get your foot in the door and then hopefully progress from there. And that did happen eventually. I got my foot in the door, and my first job was in customer care. And then from there, I became a credit assessor. And I hoped, because I didn't want to be stuck in retail. I now found myself stuck in retail banking. I would have rather been in investment banking or just in other parts of banking, but not retail banking. And I just couldn't get out of retail banking. Try as I might, I tried to apply. But in most places, if you don't have connections, it's really, really difficult. I found, because I thought I was quite capable, and I watched people who are less capable than me move and go to different departments, and I was just stuck there. The job became routine, monotonous, and mundane. So at the beginning it was nice, I was learning new things, but then it just became, I knew everything after a while, and I wasn't learning anything. I was stagnant, I wasn't developing, and so I felt then it was time to move on.
Yeah. So you had any like certain degrees, or what kind of like degrees did you take? Or
Economics,
what kind of like
a BCom in economics. Yeah.
Was your first job related to your degrees?
Well, I worked at a bank in customer care, then I went into credit assessment. So I guess I didn't really use the knowledge that I learned, which was frustrating. So basically, when you do credit assessment, you just look at the application. There's an automated system, so you upload your application on the system. Let's say you want to buy a vehicle. You're in vehicle finance. You want to buy a vehicle. You want the bank to finance the vehicle. You go to the dealership. The dealership uploads your application onto our portal system, and the system approves or rejects. So if the system approves it, then it lands in my inbox. So then I then request support documents from you. Okay, so you've got a provisional approval, but it's not a final approval. So I still need to do a few checks, do the checks and balances to see if you can afford. So we have to check how much debt you're exposed to already, check your credit history. Normally the system does that. But then also we need your pay slip so we can really confirm that you really are earning this money. We have to check your bank statements to check your expenditure. So you could be earning, let's say, £10,000, but your expenses for the month are around £8,000. And if the repayment is something like £500, that's going to be too much for you, right? Because it shouldn't exceed, your installment should not exceed maybe a third of your net income after expenses. Right. So So
Oh, that's
that's
very
basically what I did.
Oh, that's very interesting to hear that. I mean, so I'm wondering. So let me ask you one question, right? I'm really wondering, how open are the jobs in your countries? Like, let's say in the UK or like Sweden or like South Africa, to hiring individuals whose education does not like directly match the company's needs they're applying for, they're looking for. So for example, like let me explain my case, right? So my case scenario is I'm planning to pursue a career as a like project manager
Right.
in IT department, but my major is in English education, so which is entirely different, right?
It's in English and education.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
That was my major. And I took some like bunch of courses when I was living in Vancouver, and those were totally uncalled for. Like it's totally related to like entrepreneurs, like business management things. So basically, I had absolutely like zero STEM experiences or anything like related to IT knowledge, like IT industry. So, but that was more shockingly, like more interesting thing is like that is not like that isn't unusual in Japan, especially. So how is it viewed in your country?
Okay, so I have not worked in the UK for a long time. I've been living in Sweden now for over 12 years. And so I'm going to talk about what I know of the Swedish maybe work culture. They're extremely flexible. They are looking for a particular skill set, or they know that they can train you. But I find that these days what's important is they're looking for the thinkers. My daughter, for example, she's studied social sciences, and you can find that in the banks they're looking for people with those capabilities or those skills or those qualifications now, because I think technology is easy to learn online or training, but there are some things that would be very difficult for them to teach people from scratch. So I think in that way they're very, very flexible. They will interview you. They're looking and they're looking for those things, those soft skills. Right. The hard skills are important. If I know many people who studied, how can I put it? I have a friend who came and she studied, she got a master's in HR, and then the other one had a master's, I think, in media studies. I'm not too sure. All of them have ended up in the tech space. Surprisingly, where they're not necessarily looking for the thinkers, but the doers. So they went and they did, the way they got into these companies was in training courses. So you have a degree, but we have in Sweden what's called Arbetsförmedlingen, which is like a government-sponsored institution that helps people find jobs. So they have a lot of companies that have training opportunities. So you can normally they can connect you with those companies. You go in for training, and normally they'll keep you on. I have a friend once again who had I can't remember what her major is. So she went on a training at IKEA, and they made her permanent. Right at the end of her. So most of these companies are willing to make you a permanent employee if you perform. So education is free in Sweden. You don't have to pay for training or for courses.
All expenses are covered.
Free.
That's very good to know that.
That's why it's easy to work mobility. It's really easy for you to transition to a different profession because the education is free. You can just simply take a break or study at whatever time is convenient for you. So the transition to different jobs or different fields than what you were originally trained for, I find that there's quite a lot of flexibility.
Yeah, I find it also.
They look at the whole person holistically, and they think, okay, are you capable? Are you going to fit into our culture? how eager are you? Can you conform? Conformity is also another thing that's important here, to conform with Swedish culture.
Yeah, sounds like respecting their ideas and respecting their boundaries.
Yeah, which can be frustrating at times because Swedish people look at everything through a Swedish lens, and they don't want to hear anything different. They'll say, "No, that's how we've always done." Oh, I've got an idea, and I think this idea would work better. No, this is how we do it here.
Oh, okay.
Sometimes,
they kind of like to.
Where you work, I'm not saying everywhere. They're not open to new ideas. But
so basically, they like to stick to their traditions.
Doing things. Yeah.
Okay, got it. That's very interesting. So what about the like side hustle in your country, or like I don't know, any other countries you might like perhaps. So like you're doing it like Cambly as a side hustle.
Yeah. Online, I think that this is open to or accessible to anybody anywhere in the world. But in terms of, it's not that easy. In the summer, there are lots of jobs because part-time jobs because people like to go on holiday here for 4 weeks, 5 weeks. So there are usually lots of jobs to do in the summer. That doesn't always translate to a permanent job, but sometimes it can. So if you're looking to work in the summer, you can do that. But otherwise, there are not a lot of side hustles, I would say, in Sweden. Not really, because people here don't work that hard. They value the time with their family more. So you find that people are not interested in working overtime. And usually people are happy with living a simple life, a minimalistic lifestyle. So, and usually it's difficult to entice people to work extra hours so they can make extra money. Usually jobs are supposed to pay you enough to have a comfortable living. Any job is supposed to pay you according to Swedish law so you can have a comfortable living. Not an extravagant one, but a comfortable living. And if you don't earn enough, you can still apply for assistance, depending on your circumstances. So you find that the culture here is not really about working 2, 3, 4 jobs.
Yeah. はい、いかがでしたでしょうか。今回はネイティブスピーカーのキャリア観というテーマについてネイティブの方にたくさん質問させていただきました。この話し合いの中で皆さんが少しでも有益だと感じるポイントがあれば幸いです。それでは次の動画でお会いしましょう。See you next time. Take care.